My husband screamed at me. At my birthday party, what I did, next left. Everyone's speechless. I once believed that birthdays were sacred, not because of expensive gifts or flashy gestures, but because they were moments when the people you loved reminded you that you deserved to be cherished, especially by your husband. In the early years after our marriage, Ethan always made my birthdays special. He would leave small handwritten notes in my handbag, unexpectedly invite me to a cozy Italian restaurant in the city, or simply pull me into a slow dance in the living room after the candles had burned out. But over time, those moments became fewer. They grew smaller, dimmer, until one year he even forgot my birthday entirely. I laughed it off, telling myself that the pressures of work and the chaos of life had made him forget. I comforted myself by saying that love should not be measured by remembered special days or by wrapped gifts. But deep down, I knew it mattered. This year, I decided to host a small birthday party at home. I did not expect anything grand, only hoping to gather a few close friends, a few family members, enjoy delicious food, and hear the laughter filling our small house. I wanted to find back a little bit of the old magic. I also wanted to believe that Ethan and I still had a chance to find our way back to what we had lost. And if I had to admit it, I was also preparing myself for something else. Because 2 weeks before my birthday, I had discovered strange messages. They were short, rushed, but filled with intimacy. A name I had never heard before. Late-night meetings I knew nothing about, and sweet promises whispered at midnight while I was sleeping in the room next door. I did not confront him immediately, but I needed to be sure. I needed to see for myself how the man I once loved had changed. So I kept smiling, continuing to prepare for the party. I sent out invitations, ordered the food, chose for myself a soft light blue dress, the color he once loved. I personally set the table, arranged fresh bouquets of flowers, and did everything as if nothing had changed. I pretended because sometimes pretending is the last shield left to keep yourself from falling apart. That day, guests started arriving around 6 o'clock. Laughter echoed through the house, soft music drifted through the air, and the rich aroma of roasted chicken filled every corner. Everyone kept asking where Ethan was. I just smiled and said he was tied up with some work and would be here soon. But deep inside, I was counting every passing minute, counting every crack that was quietly growing larger within my heart. When the clock struck 7, my heart began to sink. I stood by the window, gripping my phone tightly, watching each pair of headlights turning onto our street, torn between hope and fear that one of them would finally be him. I knew very well he wasn't rushing home to me. I knew he was somewhere else, with someone else, and that every minute ticking by was another choice he made not to come back to me. When the door finally opened, close to 8 o'clock, I heard the familiar sound of his footsteps and his casual greetings to a few guests. I turned around, and in that fleeting moment, I allowed myself to hope. Maybe he would look at me the way he used to. Maybe he would apologize with his eyes. Maybe he would give me a reason to forgive him. But the man standing in the doorway was no longer the husband I once loved. He looked exhausted, disheveled, his shirt wrinkled and half untucked. A strong, unfamiliar perfume clung to him like an invisible shroud. He didn't walk toward me. He didn't smile. He didn't even glance my way. He headed straight for the buffet table, leaving me standing there alone, exposed under the stunned gazes of our friends and family. I swallowed the lump of humiliation rising in my throat and quietly followed him into the dining room. Around us, the soft conversations faded into silence, replaced by a heavy, suffocating tension. He poked through the dishes with visible irritation, flipping them over with obvious displeasure. Then, in front of everyone, he snapped a cold and humiliating question. "Couldn't you even manage to make the dish I like? Seriously, is there something wrong with you?" The entire room fell completely silent. All the chatter came to an abrupt stop. Forks hung frozen in midair. Every pair of eyes turned toward me, filled with shock, awkwardness, and pity. I could feel every gaze cutting through my skin, every unspoken whisper pressing heavily against me. But above all, I could feel the sound of something cracking deep within my heart. It wasn't the first time Ethan had disappointed me, but this time, I knew the fracture could never be repaired. I didn't cry. I didn't react. I simply stood there, silently looking at the man in front of me. The man I had once vowed to hold hands with for the rest of my life. And in that very moment, I knew he no longer deserved a single tear, a single defense, or even a shred of love from me. A door within my heart quietly closed. Forever. I stood there in the middle of a crowded room, yet feeling an unbearable loneliness freezing me to my core. The noise of the party seemed to dissolve, leaving behind only the cold echo of the harsh words he had just hurled at me. No one said anything. No one defended me. The very same people who had hugged me and wished me happy birthday just an hour ago now stared down at their wine glasses, pretending they hadn't seen anything. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But instead of letting my emotions control me, I took a deep breath. In that moment, a thought flashed with crystal clarity in my mind. This was the limit. This was the moment I would never turn back from. I turned away, quietly walking out of the crowded room, leaving behind all the pitying glances and the hushed whispers that weren't nearly soft enough to hide their awkwardness. I walked straight upstairs into the bedroom where I had hidden everything I needed for this day. From a small drawer beside the vanity, I pulled out a pristine white envelope. Inside was the divorce papers, already prepared, with my neat signature at the bottom of the last page. I smoothed it once with my hand, feeling both the trembling and the unwavering determination running through my fingers. I was no longer the girl who used to cry silently into the night waiting for her husband to come home. I was no longer the woman who kept making excuses for the invisible wounds he left behind. I walked slowly down the stairs, each step deliberate, my hand gripping the envelope as if it were my own future. No one in the room noticed when I reappeared. They had returned to their stilted conversations, each word an effort to fill the heavy, suffocating silence. Ethan was still there, standing by the buffet table, chewing a piece of food with a scowl on his face, as if the whole world owed him an apology. I walked straight toward him. No hesitation. No fear. I stopped directly in front of him. While around us, the murmurs gradually died down again, as if everyone could sense that something irreversible was about to happen. He turned to me, his brow furrowing, his eyes flashing with irritation, as if I were the one causing trouble. I didn't say a word. I simply extended the envelope toward him. Ethan stared at it, confused. He didn't immediately reach out to take it. He glanced at me, then looked around the room as if hoping someone would step in, someone would save him from the situation. But no one moved. There wasn't a single sound except the faint music playing distantly in the background. Finally, I spoke. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough for everyone to hear. This is the last birthday gift you'll ever give me. I saw his hand stiffen as he finally took the envelope. I saw his eyes blink rapidly, trying to process what was happening. But I didn't give him more time. I turned away and walked off, my shoulders squared and my steps steady, as if I had just thrown off hundreds of pounds of weight that had been crushing me for so long. Behind me, whispers erupted. Some people stood up, others simply bowed their heads in silence. I didn't care. From that moment on, I no longer lived for anyone else's gaze. I walked out of the house, stepping into the cold night air. No one chased after me. No one called me back. And strangely, I didn't feel any pain. I felt relief. I felt free. For the first time in many years, I felt like I truly belonged to myself. I drove aimlessly for almost an hour, drifting through familiar streets like a shadow. The glow of the streetlights blurred across the windshield, patchy and scattered, just like the emotions swirling inside me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But inside, layer after layer of pain was peeling away, exposing a hollow emptiness so overwhelming it almost consumed me. When you love someone too deeply, you always believe that no matter how much it hurts, there will still be a thread tying you together. But one day, you realize that thread had long since rotted away, and letting go is no longer a choice. It becomes a matter of survival. I stopped the car in front of a small park where I used to sit and read during my university days. The cold air hit my face as I opened the door, but I welcomed it like an old friend. I sat down on a stone bench, watching the yellow leaves drift down under the dim light. In that moment, I felt something strange. No one expected anything from me anymore. No one was waiting for me to apologize, to lower my head, to pretend to be happy. I was allowed to sit there, simply breathing, simply being myself, without having to play the role of the accommodating wife, without having to hold together a facade that had long since crumbled. My phone kept vibrating in my bag. Messages from Ethan, missed calls, messages from my mother-in-law, broken, chaotic lines of text, apologies, excuses, anger, threats. I turned off the phone and shoved it deep into my bag. Not because I was afraid, but because for the first time in my life, I no longer felt that they had the right to disturb my peace. I sat there for a long time until the night fully descended. I didn't go back to the old house. I didn't go back to my mother's house either. I booked a small hotel room, clean and warm enough for one night. The receptionist looked at me, probably noticing that I had no luggage, but he didn't ask any questions. Sometimes silence, too, is an act of kindness. The room had a small window overlooking the city. I drew back the curtain, turned on the dim bedside lamp, and sat down on the carpet, my back leaning against the bed. No parties, no birthday cake, no well wishes, no flowers. But I didn't feel lonely. I felt like I had been born again. The next morning, I stopped by a small cafe, bought myself a hot latte, and sat down to read the newspaper like a passing stranger. I didn't need to rush. I didn't need to explain to anyone what I was doing or where I was going. I started mapping out a plan for myself. First, I would find a small apartment. Then, I would sign up for the yoga class I had dreamed about for so long but had never dared to join. And finally, I would send out job applications to a few places I had once hesitated to approach, afraid that Ethan wouldn't approve. Step by step, I was rebuilding my life from the smallest fragments. News about me and Ethan quickly spread among our circle of friends and family. The same people who once admired our perfect marriage now whispered sympathetic words behind closed doors. But strangely, I didn't feel hurt by their gossip. I knew the truth, and that truth no longer had the power to break me. Ethan texted me many times, asking to meet. He promised he would change. He blamed the pressures of work, the misunderstandings, the exhaustion. But not once did he ever admit that he had betrayed me, even when I had trusted him the most. I didn't respond. Not out of anger, but because I knew any conversation would only water down the determination I had fought so hard to build. One afternoon, while cleaning my new rental apartment, I stumbled upon a small box containing our old wedding photos. I picked up one. In the photo, I was smiling brightly, my eyes sparkling with complete trust. I sat down on the floor, gazing at the girl in that picture for a long time. I didn't hate her. I didn't look down on her for having loved too much, for having trusted too much. I only wanted to hug her and whisper, "You did everything you could. Now it's time for you to be free." I closed the box of photos and tucked the past away into a corner of the closet. I didn't need to forget. I only needed to move forward, carrying with me all the lessons those days had taught me. On my next birthday, I threw a small party in my new apartment. I invited a few close friends, the ones who had stayed with me when I had nothing left to lean on. No extravagance, no elaborate decorations, just a simple cake, a few glasses of wine, and genuine laughter filling the room. When I blew out the candles, I closed my eyes and wished for only one thing: to always have the courage to choose myself, no matter what the world outside might look like. And for the first time, I truly felt that this birthday was mine alone. Not a duty owed to anyone. Not a scripted performance in a marriage that had long since rotted away. That night, after all the guests had left, I sat alone by the window, watching the city lights twinkle. No tears, no regrets, only a quiet, complete peace seeping into every breath I took. I realized then that sometimes you have to lose everything you once clung to in order to truly find yourself. And that was the most precious birthday gift I had ever received. There are nights when I still wake up in the middle of my sleep, startled by a small sound echoing in the apartment. In those moments, the old fears resurface, reminding me of the countless arguments, the angry glares, the cold words that once weighed heavily on my mind. But then I close my eyes again, listening to the sound of the wind whispering through the window cracks, the soft ticking of the clock on the table. I remind myself that now, I am truly safe. There is no one left to make me tremble when I walk through the door. No one left to make me doubt my own worth. I began learning to love the simplest things, waking up early to brew a fragrant cup of coffee, taking a late afternoon walk through the park, quietly watching children play, cooking myself a good meal at night without needing anyone's praise. Those little joys, which I once took for granted, had now become the greatest sources of comfort. You never truly realize how much of yourself you've lost until you finally walk away from places that no longer fit your heart. I used to fear loneliness so much that I accepted living inside a relationship full of hurt. I once thought that the mere presence of a man beside me was proof of happiness, no matter how much strain my heart had to endure. Now, I know that real happiness begins from within, from the courage to say goodbye, from the determination to rebuild my life with my own two hands, even if I had to start from nothing. 3 years after that fateful birthday, I received a message from Ethan. He told me that he had divorced the other woman, that his life was no longer what it once was, and that he still thought of me. I read the message, without anger, without sarcasm, and without even a flicker of satisfaction. I simply felt that everything was finally behind me. No more hatred, no more pain. Only the quiet understanding that we had passed through each other's lives exactly the way fate intended. I deleted the message. No need to respond. No need to hold on. I had spent my youth loving someone else. Now it was time to spend the rest of my life loving myself. This year, I gifted myself a short trip to a seaside town. I rented a small house facing the ocean, spending my mornings walking barefoot along the wet sand, my afternoons reading under the porch, and my nights gazing at the starry sky, allowing every moment of peace to seep into every cell of my body. I didn't need anyone to remind me that I deserved good things. I already knew it deep within my own heart. When I blew out the candles on my birthday cake, I wished for only one simple thing: that my heart would always be strong enough to love, gentle enough to forgive, and resilient enough to never forget its own worth. Some wounds will never fully heal, but it is those very scars that remind me I once fought, once endured, and once saved myself. That truly is the greatest gift life has ever given me, and I will carry that gift with me, walking forward into the next chapters of my life, with a steadfast heart and a free soul. If you are walking through the darkest days of your life, remember this: sometimes an ending is not a loss, but an invitation to begin again, in the way you were always meant to. You don't have to be strong all at once. You just have to choose yourself, day by day, step by step. And one day you'll look back and realize you've become the most beautiful version of yourself, without needing anyone's permission. Thank you for listening to today's story. This is her side of the story, where every dream is healed from the broken pieces. We are here to tell stories just like yours. And to remind you, you are never alone.